All right, everybody. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get things started this morning. I'd first like to say thank you for taking some time out of your day to attend our training today. This is kind of a secondary course to our training last month on IP 101, IP fundamentals and automation integration. But you can certainly do this class as a whole separate unit by itself. And as an added bonus, we will be giving half a CE credit for attending today's training. Today we're going to discuss how to build, manage, and profit with your IP surveillance system, and we're going to go into a few different details. Let me first officially introduce myself. My name is Troy Barron. I'm the National Sales Manager here for Channel Vision Technology. Just a little background about me. I've been in the industry for about 15 years, working both as custom retail on the AV side, working in distribution, as well as working for the manufacturer. With that being said, I do apologize if I sound funnier than usual. I do have a slight head cold, but bear with me and we'll get you through this. So today, if you're not familiar with Channel Vision, in January is our 20th anniversary coming up. So we have a full line of products that we can offer you guys, including being one of the largest structured wiring manufacturers in North America, as well as having a full line of IR control products for home theater or surveillance applications. Not to mention our high-performance audio line with our high-performance ARIA speakers as well as being a licensed manufacturer for A-bus audio and power over Cat5 technology, offering a full line of intercom systems as well as surveillance solutions, which we'll be talking about today, and Channel Vision exclusive technology. Now, a couple things that make us different than just everybody else. We're certainly proud to be able to provide you with dependable products that are backed by our 5-star program, as well as have one of the finest customer service programs in the industry, including our free design service. Well, we'll actually help you lay out everything that you need. We do offer custom manufacturing as another option for you. We do have industry-approved training classes, such as the course we'll be going through today, where you can receive CE credits, 1- and 10-year warranties, depending on the products you purchase, with 24/7, 365 technical support, and backed by our new technology upgrade program, which allows you to take advantage of your old technology products and essentially trade them in for newer technology. Now, today we will be going over a handful of different things. Like I mentioned last time, if you did attend the 101 training, there may be a few pieces of refreshing ideas in here from the last training, but we will specifically go over some of the product features of the IP cameras and the network video recorders. We're also going to talk about how you can check and control bandwidth at your job site, as well as utilize the software recording with the central management software that many people ask about, utilizing the network video recorder and its interface, and we're going to discuss a few different options when it comes to cloud recording, but just really kind of touch on that subject. With that being said, let me introduce you to the Channel Vision IP family. Most of our IP cameras here will start with the number 65, and that will indicate that it's in the IP family. With the cameras, we're going to discuss specifically looking at the 2 megapixel options, the 6521 and 6522. Both of these cameras boast the 1600 by 1200 2 megapixel HD quality resolution, as well as having varifocal or manually adjustable lenses. Slightly longer lens focal length on the bullet camera versus the dome, but certainly some options for you as well. With the water IP66 outdoor rating, you can certainly have these cameras outdoor as well without there being anything to affect it too bad. And do have IR LED night viewing up to 60 feet in the dark. With your smartphone applications, you can certainly get access to this at any time. In addition to the 6521 and 22, both of these cameras are ONVIF compliant with the latest ONVIF versions, implying that they'll work on virtually any ONVIF compliant system, as well as boasting a 2-way audio feature, power over Ethernet, with an analog video output, so you can use a spot monitor check, and SD card availability in your Vandal Dome camera. Now, in this section, we're also going to give a couple opportunities for questions, since we do have a lot of people online and not everybody has microphones. Certainly you can type in your questions and we'll address them as best as we can. And again, I do apologize about some of the audio, especially with my head cold and performing from the remote location here. With that being said, let's see if we can get things finished up here for you guys. If you were looking at the cameras themselves, the pinout for the camera, has a rather robust feature set that allows you to do virtually anything that you want, including to use a 12-volt DC option if you're not using the power over Ethernet portion. You do have an alarm trigger or input-output terminal built into the camera, as well as that video analog output, which you can use for either video distribution simultaneously with network distribution, or just to set up your monitor specifically, as well as having a microphone input, microphone output, and the ability to do everything over the Ethernet port. Now, we're going to talk a little more about power over Ethernet in a few slides later, but basically what the power over Ethernet concept enables you to do is to provide power to your device up to 328 feet away. A couple good things about the PoE switch is that it does eliminate the need for power outlets at the camera locations, and does also give you the ability to remotely reset and power cycle the camera, which is a nice feature to be able to do remotely. Also, they're using the 802.3AF 15.4 standard PoE switch is what we specifically recommend for the channel vision IP cameras. And again, like I mentioned, we'll talk a little more about PoE and managed switches in another portion of our training. Since we're on the topic of IP, and there's a lot of analog cameras out there, Channel Vision does manufacture 2 different video servers. What this essentially is, we'll take your analog camera and make it IP by assigning an IP address using the full D1 resolution of your camera. Still is going to offer the same different streaming options that the cameras do, H.264, MPEG-4, and MJPEG, as well as having the 2-way audio, motion detection, and an RS-232 connection included with a loop out feature, so you can still record your analog video if you're using that system. And we also have it available for you in a 4-channel. Now, when it comes to IP-based video systems, there are certainly a handful of things that you're going to have to consider. And we're going to take a little look at network bandwidth itself, megapixel resolution, video compression, and some recording options for you as well. First being said, we're going to discuss bandwidth. Now, bandwidth is essentially the amount of data that can travel over a network. So if you want to think of bandwidth as a highway and the amount of data as cars, you would imagine the more cars that you have, the slower your network would be, right? Just using that analogy, there's a few things that you can do to control your bandwidth. Bandwidth is controlled mainly by 3 main factors when we're in regards to IP video resolution. We're talking about resolution, compression, and frame rate. Resolution refers to the camera's resolution itself, and IP cameras are measured in terms of megapixels. The higher the pixel count, the greater the amount of detail, the better your image is going to be, and the more bandwidth it's going to use. Alternatively, compression is a great tool to help ease the strain on a network. There's a variety of different compressions available, including H.264, MPEG-4, motion JPEG, and a couple different options we'll talk a little about later, but each of those has different effects on how it performs and uses bandwidth. And the last thing that you can do to control bandwidth is adjust the frame rate of your camera. This is a feature that could be set up either in your camera's setting or in your software setting of your camera, that you could eliminate unnecessary frames from traveling over the network when they're not needed. One way that you can do this is set your camera up for motion recording and only send that information when a motion event occurs, dramatically reducing the amount of frames traveling over the network, thus reducing the bandwidth that's used. Now, when we're talking about bandwidth, there's still a question of, all right, Troy, so how much is it going to use? And my typical answer is going to say that it depends. It depends on those three variables that we looked at, as well as the performance of your network's capability. But here's a slight example that you can set with a optimal performance on a 10-100 network with 4 cameras. Now, when we're referring to a 10-100 network, this is your typical network switch that you'll find at your local electronics store, or that is obviously the main infrastructure for your network itself. Now, when you're utilizing a 2-megapixel camera using the latest H.264 compression at 8 frames per second, which is still considered full motion video, you can expect those 4 cameras to use approximately 10 megabits per second. So if you have a 100 megabit network, that's really not that bad. In that instance, you're only looking at a slight usage of about 10% for all 4 cameras. Now, when we're talking about here using bandwidth and the capability of the 10-100 network, we're referring to viewing and performance locally, which means just within the network. So, for example, all the devices in the house and the cameras in the house, this is how it would perform, looking at its specific performance being measured, I guess you could say. So with that being said, there's a way that you can check the bandwidth while you're on the job site. And this is a simple way that you can do it with using the existing computer and no additional software or anything needed. By pressing Control-Alt-Delete, you may have used that term to have to reboot your computer or to start your task manager. Within that same performance, you can select the networking tab. And within that networking tab, you can see how much data is being used at that specific moment in time on that specific PC. So, for example, you can have this computer running, have this screen up, and then you can open up the web browser and log into your cameras, and then you'll be able to see how much bandwidth network usage is being utilized just by checking the task manager already built into your computer. Now, alternatively, I'm going to tell you about a better way that you can manage your network, and that's with what's called quality of service. Now, this is referring to computer networks that allow the transportation of specific traffic with specific requirements. That's a summary version of the definition of it, but let me give you some more examples here. So, since different applications, for example, telephone, email, and video surveillance may be using the same IP network, there is often a need to control how network resources are shared to fulfill the requirement of each of those services. So one solution is to let the network switches operate differently on different kinds of service for different types of service. For example, voice and data, as well as video, as traffic passes through the network. Now, by using the quality of service for these different applications, it allows them all to coexist on the same network without consuming each other's bandwidth. Now, the term itself, quality of service, refers to the number of technologies specifically which can be identified, the type of data that's in a packet, and send those divided packets into traffic classes that can be prioritized. What this basically means is that the router itself, with the quality of service feature, will allocate a certain amount of bandwidth for specific devices and activities. Let's take a look at this example here. Using this example, you'll see on the top is a typical network, 10-100 network, using 10 megabits per second without any quality of service. Now, in this example here, the PC1 on your right-hand side is watching 2 video streams from cameras 1 and 2, with each camera streaming at about 2.5 megabits per second. Everything's fine and dandy. Then all of a sudden, the second PC in the house is doing a file transfer or streaming video from another computer. Now, in this scenario, the file transfer will use the full 10 megabits per second. That's the capacity between the 2 routers. with the video stream will try to maintain their 5 megabits per second, but the amount of bandwidth given to the surveillance system can no longer be guaranteed because the video frames will obviously drop, be reduced dramatically. So at worst, the FTP or file transfer protocol traffic will consume all the available bandwidth. So what do? Well, with the quality of service feature enabled in your switch and router, excuse me, you'll be able to devote specific amount of storage or bandwidth, excuse me, to specific features. For example, you can devote up to 5 megabits of the available 10 for video streaming specifically. The FTP traffic can be allowed up to 2 megabits per second, and the HTTP protocols can be used whatever is available thereafter. File transfers can be considered less important and then use less bandwidth, but there's still bandwidth available for web browsing as well as other traffic. Now, obviously, the biggest detail is that your switch and router does have to have this feature turned on and is actually available in many different places. Now, with that being said, let me do a quick little audio check because somebody said we're dropping out here. So again, I do apologize for that. So to recap that, you can use quality of service in order to allocate a certain amount of bandwidth to each of your devices, giving each of those devices priority. Therefore, you can confirm that your video is the most important thing and that it will always be allocated 5 megabits per second, and no matter who else or what else is trying to stream video or anything else for that matter on the network. Now again, we're referring to this all locally, and when we're referring to quality of service being a feature in your device, in your switch or router, this is typically going to be what's also known as a managed switch. You could example, there's a variety of different PoE switches that have this feature built into it. So in addition to being able to manage the switch itself with power cycling and things like we discussed earlier, they'll have additional features of quality of service and being able to allocate a certain amount of bandwidth over your respective clients. With that being said, there is another detail that you'll have to consider when we're doing IP video, and this has to do with the importance of your upload speed. So in the previous slide and everything we've talked about so far refers specifically to viewing your cameras and everything with the internal network and how it will affect the performance of all the devices on the network at your said location. Now, the importance of upload speed is a very, very important deal, specifically when you're looking to view remotely, view your cameras remotely, or export video at a great deal. So now most of your cable providers are going to mention this as, they're going to highlight the download speed, obviously, because that's a faster speed typically than your upload speed. So how much is how much, and how do you know how much you have at the job site? More importantly, when you're at your job site, there is a third-party website that you could certainly use to determine how much bandwidth, how much speed you have at the network. And this is speedtest.net. With this, while you're on site, you can run this test, and it does not take long at all. What it allows you to do is check your download speed and upload speed at any given time, anywhere in the world. So this will give you an opportunity to see if you're getting the full 10 megabits per second download and 5 uploads that you're paying for with your service provider. Now, with your service provider being said, there's a variety of different services out there. So I can't tell you specifically how much who does what, but this is just an example with Comcast, which is a nationwide provider of cable internet. For approximately $29 a month, you can get up to 30 megabytes of download speed and up to 6 megabytes of upload speed, which would be adequate for doing a handful of different things with your cameras. But with that being said, your upload speed is going to be important for remote viewing. Now, this comes to an interesting point about utilizing the network video recorder, but we'll talk a little more about that in just a little bit. So that's how you can check the bandwidth and upload speed available at your job site. Alternatively, you can do what's called running a parallel network. Now, this is a little bit different. What this involves essentially is setting up a different switch and a different router along with a different internet service. So when you're running a parallel network, this often involves adding an additional ISP stream, so paying an additional $29 a month, but this completely isolates the network specifically for video or whatever your other device that you're using. Now, this is typically done in a commercial atmosphere because it does provide greater security. Obviously, the only things that are on the network at the time are your devices, your IP cameras. There's nobody downloading anything from Facebook or having to worry about any of that stuff. And when you have, 8 to 16 cameras on your network, and those are the only things on the network, obviously makes it much easier to troubleshoot. You don't have to worry about IP addresses of different devices, and it makes things much easier for you. Also, this is more bandwidth friendly, obviously, because the workstations and everything else are on a separate switch, separate part of the network. It doesn't affect your performance here. And generally speaking, parallel networks are a little more IT friendly because the IT team doesn't have a problem with you addressing their information so you don't affect their performance. Now, with that being said, I'm going to open up the box for questions. This is a chance for you guys to type in any questions you have. If we don't get a chance to answer all of your questions, they will be answered in a quick little recap we do at the end of the training when you complete your survey. So if you have any questions that we've gone over so far, you can go ahead and type those in right now. Okay, there's a question regarding DDNS. Does the Channel Vision IP cameras offer a free DDNS hosting when the IP address is always changing? This refers to the IP cameras dedicated service line. And yes, this is a service that we do offer with IP cameras or our Channel Vision DVRs, where you can utilize our service such there's no need to you to pay for a static IP address, so on and so forth. So let's see here. Here's another question that says, how much upload speed do you need for 4 cameras, specifically for 2 megapixel cameras? Again, I'm going to say that it depends, but what you can typically do, a typical upload speed is around 2 megabits per second for your average user. And when you're doing this, we have to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So what I mean by that is if you're doing upload to cloud storage, upload to video, constant recording, there's a couple other questions that you have to address there. So if you're just doing standard video monitoring occasionally at at 1.3 megapixel resolution, you can get approximately 3 or 4 cameras live with 2 megabyte upload speed, depending on your frames and your megabits per second. So if you have that setting lower, which is something that can be done in the camera, then you can view everything remotely. But again, this is going to depend dramatically on a variety of different settings that we looked at earlier. So hopefully that gives you a ballpark answer. Now, one other thing that you can do too, when we're talking about this upload speed and this relevance here, this addresses another question about using the NVR itself and how does it affect the network. What you can do by using a network video recorder or an NVR, this in essence is reducing the amount of bandwidth used when you're logging in remotely. What I mean by that is instead of logging into 4 IP addresses individually, you're only pinging 1. So using a network video recorder can make it easier for you to access video remotely. Here's a question regarding the service features from some of the internet providers out there. It does say up to 30 megabits per second and up to 6 down. Is there any way to hold them to that? The technical answer is I'm going to say no. It's depending on the service availability. How much you pay certainly is one thing that will affect it, but that's something that you have to specifically address with your cable provider and what's capable in your area. But like I said, that speedtest.net is a way that you can physically check what you're actually getting when you're on the job site. We'll have another section available for questions, so I'll continue to move on to a couple things regarding IP cameras. We talked a little bit about megapixel resolution being a factor in how much bandwidth is being used, and this is because the higher the resolution, the greater amount of the detail, the greater the storage. What the big benefit is with IP cameras and megapixel resolution over your traditional analog cameras, one thing is that it can cover a much wider area of view. As you can see here, our camera's mounted a tad bit far away, and we can still zoom in to the digital playback without any existing zoom on our lens and be able to zoom into the specific license plate and actually be able to get facial recognition or license plate recognition of a vehicle. This is using a 2 megapixel camera. And as you can see, I'm still a little ways away and I can still see everything that I need. Now, I also told you that we'd be talking a little more about video compression from earlier in regards to the different types that we offer in our cameras, Motion JPEG, H.264, and MPEG-4. Motion JPEG can be thought of as, remember when they used to draw cartoons, one picture at a time, creating the illusion of motion? Essentially, that's what Motion JPEG is, a series of still image snapshots creating the illusion of motion. Alternatively, there is H.264, which is going to offer you the best compression with the least amount of space. This is a great tool for the bandwidth consumption as well, because this is going to give you the best amounts of compression using the least amount of storage. Now, speaking of storage, we're going to talk a little bit real quick about recording, and we're going to get into some of these options as well. You essentially have make that 4 options when it comes to recording. You have your remote monitoring feature. You have the utilization of essential management software, as well as using a network video recorder or dedicated piece of hardware. In addition to that, you can utilize cloud storage, which is something we're just going to touch on towards the end of our training, but nonetheless, some options that you have. So with that being said, when you're doing remote monitoring, this is going to give you the chance to log in through a browser and view your cameras. In this example here, you see that we're logged in through the browser, and we have access to most of the features that we're looking for. We can take a snapshot of the existing scene that we see. We could manually get into the settings and adjust some of the settings of the camera. We can see how many users are on. We can make sure our audio is activated, specifically what stream we're viewing, as well as the format of year, date, image size, and frames per second. Also just logging in through the browser. Alternatively, you can use Essential Management software. Now, Channel Vision includes Essential Management software for up to 36 cameras of recording on any PC. And we're going to actually look at that interface in just a little bit. When you're using a PC for storage, you may consider adding a network-attached storage device. This essentially is just a really big external hard drive that plugs into the network that you can route stored video to in order to free up space on your computer. So now you may be thinking again, okay, Troy, so how much storage are we talking about with these 4 megapixel or these 4 2 megapixel IP cameras? And again, I'm going to tell you, it really depends. And it's going to depend on a few different things. But when you're talking to your customers, these are the questions that you'll have to address. How many surveillance cameras are you going to operate? Are the cameras going to be recording simultaneously or only during certain hours of the day? Will your IP cameras be set to record for just motion? How long do you intend on storing the video on the hard drive? And what level of image quality are you looking for? All of these questions will alter the amount of storage that your device is going to be using. All right, that's great, Troy, but give me a number. Okay, fine. U1. Here's an estimate of what you could expect to get. Using the best quality of 2 megapixels at the best frame rate of 15 frames per second, using the best compression, you can expect your camera to use approximately 2 gigs per hour per camera of storage. Now again, this varies beyond a variety of different other variables, but that's just an approximation. So if you think that sounds like a lot, if any of you download movies, don't worry, I won't tell anybody, but the concept of downloading video, a standard DVD is about 4.7 gigabytes of information. With that being said, that's about 2.5 hours of video, which is more or less what we're talking about doing here. So take it with a grain of salt, but you will have to address those questions that we talked about a little bit earlier. That will make a big difference in your performance. Now, with that being said, we talked a little bit about the network video recorder option. Now, ChannelVision has just released the NVR4 series, which is going to offer you recording for 4 different IP camera streams and going to give you just about everything that you're going to need to have a successful IP install. All of these cameras will support HD resolution up to 1080p. We are using SATA hard drives in these applications here, and they are certified for international use. In addition, our NVRs are also ONVIF compliant, indicating that it should work with any ONVIF compatible camera, and also has a free central management software included with the NVR. In case you have multiple NVR locations, you can log in from one central location and be able to see everything. In addition to that, they do work with the ChannelVision branded smartphone app and have the opportunity to be expanded up to 4 terabytes using 2 terabytes of hard drive storage. As I mentioned, you can certainly use any of your smartphone devices to access the NVR recording. Specifically, the ChannelVision app is available in the iTunes Store and will shortly be available in the Android market as well. In the meantime, you'll have to use a third-party device for integration. In addition to that, you are going to get access to simultaneously record, playback, and display at the same time while using the built-in SATA hard drives. Now, many of you guys go, okay, so what does it look like? We're going to have a demo set up online so that you can access that shortly. But I just wanted to take you through just a couple quick steps of using the NVR because it does have a couple unique features built inside of it. One thing is when you're adding an IP camera to the network video recorder, it's super easy. So all you have to do is select your camera device, IP camera setup, and hit scan. And then it'll find the IP address using the IP quick search. And it'll automatically pull the IP address and the port that you assigned. You just want to make sure that the port matches and that you add your username and password. If you're doing with multiple cameras, it'll generate an automatic list and find all the IP addresses for you. So there's literally not a great deal of setup involved. No more 192.168... It'll find it for you, making things dramatically easier for you. And then you'll be able to set it up just in a snap. Same menu, selecting your motion. You'll have 3 different areas of motion that you can define. Simply click the motion with your mouse, match your area, and exit. Right-click. That's all you have to do. One of the things that is super easy has to do with activating your UPNP, or Universal Plug and Play, on your NVR. This is for those customers that are really not in the mood to do port forwarding. This uses an automatic port forwarding feature that allows you to utilize port 80 just by checking the box and clicking save. Then there's no port forwarding involved, but that will make it extremely easy for you to get that online. Now, regarding the playback, again, it's just going to be just as simple, giving you specific events based on what we what you defined, and be able to access all your information immediately, even through the playback feature. Now, I'll take a couple questions real quick, and then we're going to get into the software portion of it, which is free with the DVRs. There's a question, do you supply the hard drives with your NVRs? Channel Vision believes in doing what's best for the customer. We do offer options for your hard drives. We offer the ability to purchase an NVR with no hard drive, 1 terabyte, or 4 terabytes of storage. It's certainly an option that you have coming available, and just make sure we're using the right kind of hard drive. Very aggressively priced, I could tell you that for a 4-channel with a terabyte, it's going to be under $600 dealer price. Great value with a lot of extra features loaded in there. There's a question here, do you have any wireless camera integration? I can tell you that that's a top secret. I can't really tell you. I can tell you that we're looking into some other options, and as of today, there are some wireless technologies, such as a wireless bridge manufacturer called Luxel, which does managed network switches, also manufactures these wireless access points, and they are certified to work with channel vision cameras as well. If you're looking for more than just 4 channels, today you can use that sensor management software that I was telling you about and group 2 of them together, or you can wait till a little while down the line when we're going to have our 9-channel available, which I can't officially tell you about today. And the existing NVR does support up to 4 megapixel cameras. With that being said, if I didn't address all your questions, we will certainly have another opportunity and/or address them after the training. So we're going to move into the central management software, because this is a question that a lot of people have about the software. Is, so what does it look like? How do I use it? You mean this is free? So we're going to address some of those features real quick. When you're using the Channel Vision IP cameras, they do come with an included free software program that does enable you to convert your PC into a network video recorder. So with this PC software, you'll be able to load it on your PC and convert it to a network video recorder. Here's an example of your home screen with no camera connected. Once you have your camera connected, you'll be able to log into your system. It'll look something like this. This will be your main system screen. It'll give you individual access to all the individual cameras, as well as some of your auxiliary functions, as well as your monitor view, so on and so forth. What you can do to do a little deeper dive is you can select the channel tab, the disk tab on top. And this is the first thing that I typically do when I'm setting this up on a PC. And what this does is, this is called our disk management system here. This allows you to set up the software on a PC and allocate how much hard drive you want to use. For example, if your customer has a terabyte hard drive and you only want to allocate 200 megabytes for store, or 2 gigabytes for storage, you can define that here. Otherwise, it will consume the total available storage. And then you can give it specific functions. You can see here, PC camera with no limitations, or adding up to 5 gigabytes. It's really up to you on how you define it. But that's using the disk management service. Alternatively, you can select the channel tab on top of the screen right here where my mouse is pointing, and then give you access to a variety of different features. Here, under the channel tab, you'll have access to all your different channels. You'll be able to name or tag your camera, see the specific stream, port, and administrator information, as well as adjust the resolution. From the manual drop-down screen, you can also adjust the quality, whether you're going to use low quality, high quality, or the video format such as JPEG or H.264, as well as being able to adjust the frame rate, all from this one screen. In addition to this, you can select one of the tabs here right on top next to the information and get access to defining the specific areas of motion. Again, you can select up to 3 areas of motion similar to our network video recorder, adjust the sensitivity, and essentially just draw a line of area that you don't want or do want motion to be activated in. In addition to that, we do have an alarm trigger in here that you can utilize with the camera itself, since the camera has an alarm trigger on it. Simply select your switch. You can even have it send you an email when motion has been detected. You could have it play a sound, and you could even upload a sound bite if you want to add a barking dog or something to that extent. And this can all be done in the alarm portion of the software. Now, scheduling is an important thing because this is what your customers have to deal with sometimes, adjusting the schedule, viewing it. So this is an important setting here. With the schedule feature, which is, again, in the camera setup, just one of the tabs on top that we were looking at, here you'll have the option to color coordinate for constant recording, just motion, motion with events, or just events, or no recorded at all, and be able to simply click one button and apply that to all channels. You can even give it different schedules if you like by simply adding those features below with a specific start and stop time with a specific color. It's really that easy to set up your schedule. You can also define users with the software. The software will give you access to essentially two groups, guest and admin, and you can grant access to either group once you're the administrator, having the ability to shut down the system, to search the system, to access the map or the network settings, and define who gets access to what and create passwords for each of them as well. In the settings you can see here, we gave the ability for the night shift manager to only access a few features and not be able to shut down or search or access the map on our software system. So it's just by giving guest authority. Adding a map is a nice little feature that you can do with the cameras as well. I'm sorry, with the software. So for example, if you had a map of the building, a blueprint of the house, or just an example of the map of the United States, you can simply upload that, right-click and drag your cameras to the said location, and simply click on that camera location and be able to pull up the video. This is using the map feature. This is a great opportunity so that you can have, like I said, up to 36 cameras scattered across the country and give you access to just about everything that you need. Playback, again, is the most important part when you're looking, when you have trouble, is when you want to be able to view your video and make sure everything went smoothly and get that to the police without any issues. With that being said, you're just logging back into your home screen, and from here you'll have your full recording access and viewing all your playback with the specific events that occurred based on the schedule that you defined earlier. As well as being able to play back in your specific area, all you have to do is hit the play button, and you'll also be able to zoom in digitally to see what's going on during that recording time. To make it real easy, you can export to an AVI file with your watermarking without doing anything complicated. Select your start time, your end time, the specific cameras that you want to export, in our example just camera 1, and save it directly to an AVI file. Makes it really easy. You can also save a JPEG file if you're going to do a snapshot or just do a still image. So it really, truly does make it easy, and being that it's a free software included, it makes it dramatically easier to get everything accomplished without a great deal of cost added, especially with the low cost value of the Channel Vision IP cameras. You'll also have access to the SD card recording to this portion of it. Now remember, doing SD card is just going to do flash recording, so it's not going to do full motion video, and that's due to a limitation of the card itself, as well as the storage ability within the card. Now, we're all here to make money. There's no secret about that. But what's more important about just making money is being able to actually make a profit. After you pay your taxes and all your expenses, what you take home is actually the most important part. And one way that you can institute that is by generating recurring monthly revenue. Now, if any of you are familiar with alarm companies or sell and install alarms, this is a similar fashion to monitoring, where you're going to receive a monthly payment for a service that you're providing. So, for example, many of the companies such as ADT and things of that nature will provide the hardware in conjunction that they're looking for a 3-year contract for you to pay $40 a month, and that recurring monthly revenue is constant for that 3 months. So how can you capitalize on that feature if you don't do alarms? Well, there's a few different ways that you can do that. And to start with, video storage or just system monitoring. With this option, this is going to be a feature that's available utilizing either IP cameras or analog, but traditionally it'll be IP cameras for video storage. And Channel Vision is actually going to be offering an IP video storage in 2013 so that you can restore your video off-site on a Channel Vision server. But this is a great feature and often one that's required for some monitoring stations. When I'm referring to monitoring stations, it greatly reduces false alarms. For example, there was a time where in Los Angeles couldn't dispatch the police from an alarm monitoring company without video verification. That comes back to having system monitoring, which is why it's an additional service that the alarm companies can charge. Now, this is also something that you can do. There's a variety of different companies out there, All-American Alarm Monitoring, Security Central, that offer video monitoring, as well as a company known as Video Valet, which is a company that's an escort service that will allow you to give them a call, and they'll check the video to make sure that nobody's at your house prior to you arriving there. So there's a variety of different options that you have to deal with when utilizing this. And when you're doing remote video storage, this comes back to setting up expectations with what we talked about earlier regarding your upload speed. When you're doing your video cameras, your IP cameras on site, and you're doing remote video storage, it's not going to be doing full motion recording. Typically, there's just not enough bandwidth there and able to do that. So the way you define that is by setting up a series of events for motion, and you can do 20 seconds before, 10 seconds after, or vice versa. And this will reduce the amount of bandwidth that's being used and allow it to be exported and stored on the off-site location so that you can access it at a later time. Now, video storage varies, and typically they charge not necessarily per camera, but per gigabyte of storage, and it really depends on how much you're going to need, depends on how much that they're going to charge. And this is typically a fee that they'll charge you, which you could in turn charge your customer an extra amount. For example, with a monitoring contract, they'll charge $5.95 for the contract to you. You charge the customer $29 for 2 years, and that recurring revenue comes to you. And that's one way that you can capitalize using the video storage for off-site storage for your IP cameras, or add that feature as a monitoring service in conjunction with your alarms so that you can do video verification of alarm systems. Now, when you're selling managed services, this is a feature, kind of a peace of mind thing, which is the biggest thing about security, being able to log in remotely and see your kids. When you're logging in to your DVR and using off-site storage, the reason we're going to do this, Mr. Customer, is so that if anybody breaks into your house, it's real easy to steal a piece of hardware, but having this backed up remotely ensures that nothing can go wrong with your video, because anything can happen at the job site here. Your house can catch fire, a variety of different things, and this ensures that everything is at a safe, secure location, managed professionally by a group specifically dedicated to this service. So that's a little bit about your IP storage and how you can turn that into profit, as well as stay in tune for some Channel Vision services that we'll be offering in conjunction with that. So I'll leave you guys with a couple other things. If we don't change, we can't grow. IP is a new technology. It's quickly catching fire out here. With the cost of IP being reduced so dramatically, it certainly makes it a viable option to offer your customer better quality. Just for example, Channel Vision has some IP cameras that are less expensive than some customers' analog options. So we'll certainly have some options to help you get to that next level. as well as some of the services to back it up as well. So just a quick little recap. We talked about some ways to control and understand your bandwidth. We talked about how you can check your bandwidth on site, as well as factors and variables that you can use to alter the bandwidth that's being used. We talked a little bit about how to use the network video recorder as a recording option. Utilizing a dedicated piece of hardware means using less bandwidth and simple to access recording that doesn't involve computers or anything else. We talked alternatively about using the central management software, which is a free software that's included with the channel vision cameras, which makes it easy to profit with any IP camera sale. And we touched a little bit about how you can sell managed services, some of the services that are available, and how those services are used. With that being said, we're going to see if we have any additional questions. We're going to open up the line real quick, see if we have any questions on here. How many cameras does your NVR support? We can support up to 4 cameras. Do you guys have IP megapixel pan-tilt zoom cameras? Today we do not, and the reason we do not is that kind of going back to what we talked a little bit earlier about the benefits of megapixel resolution. Having one camera being able to provide a wider area of coverage and still being able to zoom in within the existing field of view, which is why we do not have IP PTZ cameras today that are looking to be something a little more profitable. Here's a question regarding how do you sell more expensive NVR and IP cameras. A lot of it has to do with setting up the expectations for your customers. This happened a lot with televisions when flat panel TVs came out. People were buying HD TVs, getting home, and then noticing that the picture looked horrible. That's because you weren't giving them an HD source to view it on their HD television. Same kind of concept applies. Now with HD and wide demand and wide usage, people come to expect HD video. And the only way you'll really be able to deliver that is by adding IP. Another great selling point with IP is, especially if you're doing any kind of integration with smartphones or automation systems, IP is practically a prerequisite for that. There's a question here, do we have indoor IR IP cameras? And the question is, yes, we have a full gamut of options. We have indoor options, outdoor vandal-proof options, as well as custom solutions that can fit into a 2-gang box that you can't find just anywhere else. Here's a question regarding the web servers that we looked at earlier. Can the 1 and 4 channel web servers be integrated into the software or off-site video monitoring? And the answer to that question is yes. That software that we were looking at earlier, the CMS software, can be added and utilized using that same 4-channel or 1-channel network video recorder or web server, and you'll be able to access all of that remotely. You'll be able to export that to an FTP site, aka off-site storage, and have the ability to do everything with either of those options, whether it be the web server or via the software that we're talking about. Here's a question, is the 2 megapixel noticeably different than the 1.3? I'm going to say, again, it depends on what you're looking at, but for the most part, yes. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. It's like, can you see the difference between 540 lines and 600 TV lines? Yeah, you can see a little bit of difference. It will be a little more dramatic with IP because obviously you're virtually twice the amount of resolution. So yes, you'd be able to notice the difference, but for all intents and purposes, 1.3 megapixels is still twice as good as your best analog camera. So take that into perspective, and when you're doing your settings, and you'll be able to adjust that either way. Here's a question regarding utilizing the audio. Are there any legal issues regarding recording audio with CCTV? And I'm going to say generally yes. That's something that you have to attend with your state laws. Typically, it does have to involve you notifying somebody that you're being recorded in order for it to be submissible in court. But again, that's something that you have to check with your local jurisdictions. Looks like we have addressed most of the questions. If we haven't gotten to your specific question, again, there will be a survey afterwards that we do encourage you to complete, give you an opportunity to ask any additional questions, as well as provide feedback on how today's training session went, things that we can do better, things that you'd like to see us do more of. And you can certainly follow us on Twitter, be our friends on Facebook, and watch your latest trainings on YouTube by visiting the Channel Vision YouTube channel, which is also on channelvision.com's homepage. That'll give you access to all of our recorded trainings. In case you missed something, needed to rewind and go back and look at some information, all that information will be available. Alternatively, you can always give us a call here at the office at the number that you see on the screen. We're here. Your sales team is available for you with information on the products inventory, and our technical staff is here to help you set up anything that you need. So again, we'd like to certainly appreciate your time that you spent with us today. We'll let you get back to your day and make sure that you guys have a great holiday, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you and have a great day.